Philip Adams.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Adams, you're charged with criminal mischief. You're facing a year in jail and or a $4,000 fine. We're going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present during questions and interviews with the state of Texas. If you cannot afford a lawyer will be appointed to represent you, sir. Okay.
On 9/20, officers were dispatched to 17460 Northwest Freeway in Harris County, Texas, in response to a road rage incident. Complaining witness was traveling on 290 when the defendant cut her off in traffic and began driving aggressively. Complaining witness exited and defendant followed her. Defendant pulled up next to complainant and threw rocks at her car, damaging the windshield. Complaining witness stopped at a parking lot and called the police while the defendant continued to circle her car. When officers arrived, defendant was gone and complaining witness provided physical description of car and license plate. Officers located D, who was at a nearby store via flock cameras. Defendant and defendant's car matched the description/license plate, and defendant was positively identified by CW.
Mr. Adams, I'm going to find that there's probable cause to go forward to your case. I'm ordering you now as a condition of your bond not to have any contact with the complaining witness in this case and not to be in possession of weapons. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
If you violate these conditions, I will arrest you, put you in jail, and make your bond extremely high. You will not get any more PR bonds out of us. Do you have a Texas driver license?
Yes, sir.
If I find that you drive like this again or have any more road rage incidents, I will take your ability to drive. Let me tell you that living in a city as big as Houston without the ability to drive blows. Do you understand? It really, really sucks. Don't force me to do that, but I will do it next time if I find that you do it again. Exercise patience. You never know who you're messing with. They might have a gun. You know how many people get shot in Houston because of the same thing? So I'll have you go to Victoria, sign a reset. I'm going to have you then take a seat in the jury box. I'll get your bond conditions. We'll have you sign it, and then we're going to let you go. You need a lawyer to represent you in this case, so we're going to give you time to get one. When you come back, please have a lawyer.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Is this Derek Addison?
Page 4, Bessis.
Oh. Good morning, Mr. Bessis. Mr. Bessis, you're charged with interference with the duties of a public servant. You're facing up to 6 months in jail and or a $2,000 fine. We are going to do probable cause. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can or will be used against you. You have the right to have an attorney present. If you cannot afford one will be appointed to you, sir.
On March 19, 2024, officers were dispatched in response to a family violence investigation. The officers met with the caller and the defendant. The officers went to detain the defendant. The defendant refused and would not place his hands behind his back. Officers ordered defendant to place his hands behind his back. Defendant refused and actively resisted by pulling away and moving his arms.
What was the investigation for?
It was a family violence investigation.
Was he doing anything wrong?
So the officer just advised him that he was being detained for the purpose of the investigation. Gonna look and see what.
Do you have anything that he's doing wrong that would cause the Bessis?
We're taking a look, Judge.
Sure, take your time. There's no rush, really. I just want to make sure we get it right. That's it. You know.
So the complainant has told officers that the defendant began throwing things onto the floor, and he was upset and started to become verbally aggressive towards the complainant. The complainant stated that the defendant wrapped his right hand around the complainant's neck and pulled him down to the floor.
And so they came to investigate, and then he just, okay. Mr. Bessis, I'm going to find that there's probable cause to go forward with your case. Tell me, what do you do for a living, sir?
Currently retired military, and then I get started on my Social Security.
How much do you get from Social Security a month? Okay. Do we know, does the complaining witness want to have contact with him? And who is the complaining witness? Is it
Stepfather.
Stepdaughter?
Stepfather.
Stepfather. Stepfather. How old is his stepfather?
83. just a misunderstanding.
Don't. But how much trouble can an 83-year-old create? Come on, man. It's like a little kitten.
It wasn't like it sounded.
All I need to know is whether he wants to have contact with you or not. Because if you're acting aggressive and not being nice to him, I'm going to forbid you from having contact with this person. And if you live with this person, then that means you're not going to be able to live with him.
No, yeah. I mean, that was.
Well, you're saying that, but I don't know what his side is. Do you guys know?
I don't, but I can try to give him a call.
Let's do that. So what I'm going to do, Mr. Bessis, now is I'll appoint your lawyer, and we're going to have the DAs reach out to him to see what he wants. I want to honor what his wishes are. And if he says he doesn't want to have contact with you, I'm going to order you not to have any contact with him. If he's okay with it, then I'm going to order you not to have any threatening or harassing contact with him. What you also need to understand is what is threatening or harassing doesn't matter what you think. It's how he perceives. So if you start acting aggressive, I'm going to put you back in jail. All right. I'll have you sign a reset with Victoria, and then we'll just have you take a seat at the jury box for now, sir. Go ahead.
So we were able to get in contact with your stepdad, and he stated that he does not want contact and wants you out of the house.
You cannot go back to that location, Mr. Bessis. I don't know what to tell you. Do you have somewhere else to go? Who do you have around that can help you?
Not surprised you said that, but my mother's house.
And Judge, just I understand that there was an underlying domestic violence, as far as that's what the underlying case was, but that was never filed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so
It
and
wasn't filed. Right.
the only thing that we have today was the interference. So on the interference, the complainant would be the police officer, correct? Not necessarily stepdad. If stepdad was the complainant, I think that the state would have filed. And the only reason I say that, Your Honor, is because Mr. Bessis is a disabled vet who told me that his mother is the one who actually owns the house. That might be a dispute, maybe more so between mom and stepdad, more so than Mr. Bessis when we're looking at things. If his mom is the one that owns the house, wait, Mr. Bessis, I can speak for you. If his mom is the one that owns the house, and I understand that there might have been an altercation with stepdad long ago, of course, because this case is a little older too, even though, like I said, I'm just not getting on it. But from a complainant standpoint, if the state had filed it, I would think that would be a complaint to protect. But in this case, I think that it might be, because the state hasn't filed it, I would urge against having any restrictions to the home.
Are you setting him up to fail, though?
Well, no, Your Honor. I think this is my thing. Had it been, as far as I'm concerned, the reason why he's here today was on a bond forfeiture, correct? Is that why he was brought back? And I just got on the case, so I'm just trying to. But that's what I was getting from.
Yeah. So what happened was we gave him a general order bond in March of this year. He took off. We issued a warrant. They must have rearrested him, and they gave him another PR bond September 21. Okay. Mr. Bessis, you will not get another PR bond. You take off on me again, you will be stuck like Chuck in custody.
And Judge, I can explain kind of as well as far as on the bond forfeiture. I told him that the only person who can ever tell him not to show up would be somebody who's appointed on the case. He said that when he got the bond or whatnot, plenty of lawyers called him. One of the lawyers that he spoke to on the phone told him he didn't have to show up to court. I think it might have been one of those type of things to where, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm not fully aware of all the disabilities that Mr. Bessis faced, but he told me that he believed that he didn't have to show up, and now when he got picked up again, he was completely surprised by it. He thought that his court case was done with because he thought that there was no arrest when it came to his father or whatnot. And I had to explain to him what the nature of this case was and what that interference really meant. Even after, and I understand that you already addressed PC, that was a surprise to him. He didn't understand why he was here today.
Michael, what do you think? What's your opinion about going home?
Judge, I understand that it's kind of an old case, but it's an old case because the defendant chose to not come to court on a general order bond.
Well, no, you're right. I'm not so much concerned about the age. I'm more concerned about if he goes home or goes back to, and we don't even know if it's mom's place. We're just going on what he says.
Well,
how do we really know?
I would urge that Right here, on the current charge, we have an interference. The complainant is the police officer. Anything to protect that police officer, I'm fully on board with. But anything outside of protecting that police officer, I would say would be a little bit extra, for lack of a better term.
I have one more question. Was any alcohol involved with this, or any kind of drugs or anything like this? Mr. Kim?
Well, at the time, or during the call earlier, the stepdad did say that the defendant smokes marijuana and possibly another drug, that he's supposed to be on a certain type of medication, but he does not take it.
What do I do now when dad says he don't want him there?
Well, and I would say this again, Judge, that when we're talking about as far as dad at this point is, in my mind, inconsequential. He is not part of this case. There hasn't been, especially, I would think, had we come back on another incident that arose with dad since then, and we're talking about that time, had it been picked up on, hey, the reason why we came out there and we got the bond forfeiture, because we realized there was a KPS out on Mr. Bessis when we came to this disturbance. Hey, I completely understand. But it was 6 months ago and we haven't had an incident. We've just had a phone call today on a person who is not a complainant to this case. And during that phone call, we found out that a person who is not a complainant, not privy to this case whatsoever, doesn't want Mr. Bessis to live in his home. But we're going for Mr. Bessis has said, as far as that's his mother's home.
I understand.
And there hasn't been, and there hasn't been any type of issue going from here or from then until now, other than a phone call.
Well, I understand this was 6 months ago, but I do think it's important to note that this was today. This rip wasn't done 6 months ago. And the stepfather didn't say 6 months ago he wanted them out of the house. He said that today. So I think that speaks also to just the ongoing situation that's in that house. And if you'd like, Judge, we can call back the stepfather and attempt to get in contact with the mother who actually owns the house.
Is stepfather complaining? That's what I'm getting back to. Is stepfather complaining? Because that is so inconsequential to this case whatsoever.
Counsel, hold on. Judge, I understand the defense's position saying that it's not part of the case. It's everything to do with this case. This is a family violence case that turned into an interference with the duty of a public servant. The only reason they have probable cause to approach the defendant and to try to detain him is because of the alleged assault. The assault has everything to do with this case. It's the reason why this case exists in your court today.
I know, but they didn't file it though.
They didn't file it.
I
What are you talking
understand,
about?
and whatever the reason is, Judge, that's inconsequential to the fact that the state believes that the complainant should be protected in this case. And that's why we're asking for that. That's the only reason why we're asking for that, Judge.
Again, if the state wants to protect, if the state felt there was a need to protect, they should have filed it. There's no complainant here other than the police officer. When he's talking about it being inconsequential, yes, it is inconsequential beyond probable cause. Probable cause has nothing to do with protecting the complainant. We can use many factors for probable cause, and that it can be completely inconsequential to who the complainant is. The only thing we have right now is a phone call on a person who is not a complainant, and that's supposed to uproot Mr. Bessis.
So are you telling me that I cannot, because he is not technically as listed, are you telling me that I can't put conditions on to protect the stepfather?
What I'm saying is that there is nothing there that, what I'm saying is when you're talking about conditions to protect the stepfather, we are usually 9 times out of 10 talking about a domestic violence issue where there has been a transaction to where, based on the state's allegation and probable cause that came from a charge by the state, which was domestic violence, which tells you, Your Honor, that you need to protect that complainant. Right now, before you in this court, we do have a charge. We do have a complainant. That complainant is that police officer. And I welcome any restrictions that you would like to place on Mr. Bessis as it relates to that police officer. Anything outside the police officer, the state should have filed it. If they really felt like he needed to be protected, the state should have filed it. If they really felt like there was a case, the state should have filed it.
What you wish for?
No, they should have done it then. I'm saying if they want to do it now, then tee it up. Let's go. But they should have filed it back then.
I understand, Judge. I understand everything counsel's saying. I believe that the reason why this case wasn't filed is because at the end of the day, the complainant did say he didn't want to file charges, but he called the police that day, and it's in the offense report. You can take a look at it yourself.
That's why they didn't file the charge. Because
Yes.
you asked them not to.
But he stated that he showed aggressive behavior towards him that day, and there is an assault family member in here somewhere, Judge. It's just not an actual charge, but you have every right to use your authority as judge in Harris County to impose restrictions to protect the community. The 1715 factors apply here, and that's why you should protect him.
What I'm asking for, before we uproot Mr. Bessis, and I would even be fine with rolling it next week, let's find out who actually has the ownership to that house and who can say who can live in that house. Period, point blank. I'm getting on the case right now, old and tooth, and we're talking about the state reminding us what county it's in.
What is your position? What is your position
My position,
if I say no contact with stepfather though?
if you
Let him go back to the house, but no contact with stepfather.
I'm completely fine with that. I'm completely fine with that. No contact with stepfather whatsoever.
Okay, let's do that.
How is that possible, Judge? How is he going
He's
to?
gonna have to go to another part of the house. So do this, let your complaining witness know, call him back now and say, look, the judge, because he has nowhere else to go, is letting go to the house. However, he's orders no contact. The first instance, we get word that you have contact with stepdad, I'm gonna put you in jail.
The only issue I have here with that, Judge, is I believe if you do that, we are all setting up the defendant for failure. We're setting him up for failure.
They're asking for this though. Because he has nowhere else to go. Otherwise, I'm putting his ass on the street. I don't want to put someone on the street. It's up to them. It's up to him, Mr. Bessis, to somehow work it that he's not going to have contact with it. That's not your problem. It's not my problem. We're just saying don't have contact. That's it.
Because wait, this is something, I hate to cut you off, but this is pertinent. I know that you ripped him, but he's saying that stepfather's in the nursing home. So I want to figure out if we can figure that part out. I know that you said that he doesn't want him there, but is he actually in the home?
At this moment today, the stepfather is in the hospital for an unrelated injury. So Germany spoke with him. I'm not sure, something unrelated to the case, but he's not in a nursing home. I think he's in a hospital.
Well, Judge, he's an 80-year-old man. He could be in the hospital for a multitude of factors. The point is, when he comes back, he's going to come back to a home with a defendant that's assaulted him before, likely. And Judge, the only other.
I get it.
Sure.
I'm going back to that, Your Honor, and
I don't want him to have contact with this person. That's all I'm going to ask.
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Bessis, two things. Don't use drugs. No illegal dope. I'm going to test you today because I want to know what is in your system.
Marijuana illegal?
Yes, it's illegal.
I didn't know.
Marijuana is still illegal in Texas. The legislature has not made it so. And with our legislature, I'm not going to get into that. It's a different discussion. But even if it was legal, I would still be ordering you not to use it while this case is open. You are not to use PCP. You are not to use any other illegal substances. I don't know. The allegation is other drugs as well. So, Mr. Bessis, you've already taken off on me once and we gave you a second PR bond. That will never happen again. All I'm asking you to do not have contact with this person and don't use any illegal substances. I'm not asking you to do quantum mathematics here. You understand? Okay. If you ever have any issues, you have a junkyard dog that will fight tooth and nail for you here. There's absolutely no excuse if you ever have any issues. But I'm not going to be understanding if someone who is in their 80s and elderly and hospital bound, if you continue to have contact with them. I don't care what your excuse is. I don't person because they're going to contact him now and let him know that you're not to have contact with this person. And if you do, okay. Thank you.
Judge, do you want to report back to court?
He can go. But if it comes back hot, then I'll call you and we'll talk, but